Well, Kyle,
Yes, Garrett.
we've completed our victory lap.
Extremely well done.
As you may know, we are continuing our first ever playthrough of Final Fantasy XIV, and we have completed 5.0, and it took a long time to make those videos, so while we were chilling, waiting to get through those videos, hi Karth, we went and did all of the 5.0 trials on Extreme.
Of the ones we've committed to, we've always done the end extremes. We haven't done all extremes, but we've hit up Thordan, Shinryu,
Tsukiyomi.
Well, that was the 4.3, but yeah, I'm thinking of the 5.0s, the 4.0s, the 3.0s.
I think of
We've done all
Tsukiyomi
those.
as the end of Stormblood.
I agree.
We've done the big capstones. This is the first time we went and did ones that we would consider kind of minor villains as much as, I guess Titania, which I really like Titania. Nothing against Titania, but saying Vothru's a minor villain is pretty disingenuous because Vothru's kind of a big part of 5.0 Shadowbringers. Pun not intended.
For instance, let's think about some Stormblood MSQ proper trials here. I don't think you were very seduced by the idea of seeing Lakshmi extreme. But along our Shadowbringers journey, we definitely felt, ooh, Titania. Oh, that'd be fun. I want to see that extreme. Ooh, Vothri. Oh, what's that like in extreme? Extremes in Shadowbringers piqued our interest along the ride more than I think we've ever had in other ones. I love Ravana too. Ravana's awesome. But I wasn't immediately I gotta run this in extreme. I gotta see what this is like.
Yeah. Although I did feel that way with Susanoo, and we still haven't done Susanoo Extreme. I would say in this cluster of three, and let's just call it the 5.0 extremes, we've done some of the easiest extremes we have ever experienced, and one of the most difficult. But before we move on, subscribe. Are you subscribed? Why aren't you subscribed? We see the stats. You're probably not subscribed.
It's true. It's funny and sad because it's true.
Statistically speaking, you're more likely to not be subscribed than you are. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and if you are subscribed, thank you. I'm not going to make you do any more work.
Thank you. You could like the video. You could like the video.
You could like the video. You could go to our Patreon and support our bromance.com. You could become a YouTube member. We're not going to tell you to.
No. Or you could share. You could share the video. That'd be cool too. Share with friends. Tell your friends.
Yes, tell your friends. But we're not going to tell you to tell your friends. But you could tell your friends. Just like you could subscribe.
Subscribe. Coward. My God. Oh, it'll get a little better each time. Oh my
This is the
God.
most broken I've ever seen you.
I suck so bad at this game, but I get better each time. Terrified. Now, we've said before that we need a challenge or to grow as players. I feel like I did some growing with these.
I did afterwards when I found out that there were two abilities I had that I wasn't using.
Oh, you had two? I thought it was just the one, the Midnight Missionary.
Midnight Mission. Oh, yeah. No, that was one of them, and then there was something else. I don't think it was a mitigation? I don't know. I'm not sure. I put them on my bar. We were finishing up Hades Extreme at 2 a.m. my time.
Hey, Yoshi P's with you. You cleared it. No questions asked. There's no meters to check. There's no deducing to be made. If you can clear the content, right, you are welcome in Final Fantasy XIV.
May have been a little harder on you all because I believe Midnight Missionary is a 10% damage or magic damage reduction for the entire party. So would have made things a little easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recover a little bit of my ego about not making the heal checks perfect.
Just a hair.
I mean, for me, it's just raw buttons. Astrologian has so many buttons along with the card stuff going on. I never really got used to Minor Arcana when I got that at level 70. I actually just didn't really play with it at all. One of my big goals in hitting these extremes was to get my damage out, to be using my primary Malefic more often to deal damage, to be getting out my giant space bomb with my stellar detonation Earthly Star, and to take advantage of Minor Arcana. So I did a big bar rearrange. I had my middle bar nice and clean right there, 4 buttons that do the damage. That's my focus, because it's Final Fantasy XIV. You got to do damage as the healer. A lot of off global cooldown abilities while doing the global cooldown ability. I'm not very good at this part. I need to go to single weave. I'm trying to do double weaves. It's too much for me right now. But also I'm finding this game is really hard to learn because of the presentation. Yoshi P's defense of no damage meters, the lack of add-ons and tools. I do find it kind of hard to deduce how I should be playing, how I should be executing. And also means there's a lot of misinformation in the community. Like when you go talk to people about, hey, how does this ability work? You get a lot of different opinions because it's not as standardized. Endgame rating isn't the only endgame there is.
Expand upon that.
For instance, when people sit down to play World of Warcraft, there is a funnel kind of pushing you towards endgame rating, right? So it means that...
Or mythics. Gross.
A shared opinion by many. There's a funnel that leads you there, and while there's competition in the YouTube space and about who to listen to and don't go to Icy Veins, they're bad, or whatever kind of opinions might be floating out there, there is a homogenization. The information competes with itself, and eventually something kind of rises to the top. In Final Fantasy, I don't find that information as readily available. I really like Wescalper videos, but even that information gets argued with in our chat. For instance, my Samurai opening, which I do exactly what Wescalper told me to do, is often critiqued as the wrong way to do it. And coming from that Blizzard sphere where information is heavily criticized and heavily cut down, and you have these sources that rise to the top very quickly on an expansion release, it's been hard to learn. So facing the challenge of extremes has forced me to try new things, to see if I can make heal checks, if I can still get out the damage. And for all of these, I've been sticking to Astrologian, so I've learned a lot. I've learned a ton about the class, and it forced me to improve, which, frankly, I need.
There's nothing wrong with what you said. I find it obtuse to know if I'm doing things correctly, right? Like, because if you could see damage numbers, like at the very least, like you'd know what good damage numbers were and whether you were doing your rotation right or wrong. If you got near that, you would feel successful. But I think the difference between the two of us is I'm finding it kind of just relaxing. I'm enjoying this binary. Did you clear it? Cool. All good then. A clear is a clear. And yeah, maybe I should have been using some extra abilities. But I also think it's kind of cool that we made it through and that could even happen. That, afterwards I can find out like, oh, damn, there were more things I could have been using.
We're treating this more like a challenge list, a list of achievements, and we put the little sticker in our Pokédex when, we kill the bad guy in Extreme. We're not farming week after week, so there's no need to optimize or critique that play further after the boss is down.
We'll probably get there eventually. I'm sure we'll run into something that stumps us and we don't clear it in a single night. Well, if we're going to go fight by fight, it's not going to be a perfect increase of difficulty. Because I think second place for most difficult of these three goes to Titania Extreme.
Titania was busy and not entirely different than its original.
No, it's almost a dead ringer, the same fight, just harder. You start with your phase 1, you have your transition in the phase 2 where you start by fighting the little adds into the giant add phase, and then you go into phase 3 where you got to do like all the things together, plus not summon water elementals, and eventually you'll get the kill. To me, it seemed like the biggest difference with the extreme version of Titania is during that ad phase. Two main things. One, I think, is just pure evil, and I respect the shit out of it, which is they got rid of the push arrow graphic, like the telegraph for the big fist smash in the middle, gonna push you potentially off the platform. Because that's kind of the nail biter, as I like to call it, the butt clench moment of that ad phase is when that blue circle appears in the middle. If you have done it on normal, you know what we're talking about, because you also see the radiating arrows out, giving you that big obvious warning that a push is about to happen. So you got to get as close to that blue circle as you can without getting completely destroyed by the fist. But they removed that telegraph. All you've got is the blue circle in the middle. So that's change number one. And then at the exact same time, during that part, in the extreme part of this fight, these, I don't know what to call them, the thorny vine things, 3 of them on either side going in opposite directions emerge, and that's not in the normal fight. But as far as I know, those are the only 2 different things, and they happen at the exact same time.
I do think we've learned quite a bit about extremes, because when we saw the water pools show up, we knew that was to counter Flamey Fist business. So that was a water rune into fire rune kind of thing. So our previous extreme experience served us well, as we got into Titania. And Titania normal, we died a lot, naturally, but it's kind of, the game is res the streamer and keep the video going, right, for the live crowd. You just kind of stumble through them. So with this actual extreme execution, we got to learn what the heck was going on.
This was, at the time, I think the earliest we ever cleared an extreme.
At the time, yeah. What was it? Second lockout?
I think it was second lockout. Our delightful defuncted Rebel puts together statistics for all of our extreme runs. And Titania was completed in 1 hour and 46 minutes, which was our fastest extreme run up to that point. Can you see where this is going, dear viewers?
Did we have a red mage for that one?
I believe we had a red mage for Titania, but not Hades.
Yeah, red mages are a big deal.
We messed up.
Red mages help out a lot.
Yeah, and apparently so do shield healers, and we never have them. We never have shield healers.
I mean, I'm taking one of those spots right on Astrologian, so there's a good chance we're not getting one. I've already decreased it by 50%. I do have some shields, of course.
I really enjoy the Titania fight. To me, the extreme just makes it more enjoyable because you have to try, you have to be on your game. The ads are evil, truly evil. The only other part that I felt like we were really struggling with was spreading safely while the lines of vines spread in that final phase.
And as we do these blind, we do discover as we go, and we are allowed to, by our kind companions, to make mistakes and try things out. We have now started watching a guide after the initial run is over. And, shout out to Mistec and their fabulous guides. This one didn't have too much we did wrong or made too difficult for ourselves.
We were missing some optimization. We didn't know how the thorn lassos were doled out. But it was more or less okay because to do it right, even though I died to falling off many times, you need to ride out the push wave anyway.
In addition to this being the first extreme where I was working heavily on getting my damage abilities out and on cooldown, this was also the extreme where I finally learned my lesson about standing next to the tank due to Fey Light, a triple cast conal tank buster. I like you a lot, Garrett. I like standing next to you. I like being your buddy shoulder to shoulder, but not the place for the poor Clothy to be enjoying.
No, it isn't. And that is a theme I've noticed with all three of these extremes, is that the bosses get moved around a lot. And there can be moments of misfortune while I try and reorient a boss, and they turn and maybe decide now is the time to throw a cone attack.
This is also where we learn that some abilities like tethers don't actually cause the boss to target anybody. In particular, while they're casting, the spell just sort of happens. So while I haven't been invested in macros or making my own little button schemes to do target kind of business, this fight made it clear that those aren't really going to hold up when you get to extremes.
Well, let's talk about the super easy little baby in the room.
I mean, no insult to the fight designers by any means. It was a beautiful fight.
Let's talk about my first extreme.
It was easy. Crown of Immaculate extreme. Innocence extreme. Not too hard.
We didn't know what to do with the rest of our night. We usually show up for extreme night. That's it. That's the stream. That's all we're doing that night. We took down Innocence in 58 minutes. One lockout. We almost screwed the pooch because our second to last pull, we didn't realize Vothri was just going to pose at the end. And there was a very pregnant pause of us being like, wait, we can get on him and continue damaging. Because he gets in the pose for the dash attack, but the charge up is much longer. And it's this big telegraph to this is it. Kill me now or this fight is over. And we waited too long.
2%. Yep.
And we died. So we almost didn't do this in a single lockout.
I think it would be an excellent introduction to extremes, but we also brought our knowledge from other extremes to it. I think really one of the key easy parts of this extreme is just an open field. There's no giant fruit monsters. There's no giga wings taking up your whole screen. You have one dude in the middle for the most part the entire time, with nothing but air to breathe around. Everything's very gold, so maybe if you have kind of a gold blurring effect, like you kind of lose focus in that much gold, you might struggle. The visuals weren't as diverse from the environment as some of our fights, but it was easier to deduce. We took advantage of our markers. We've learned about clock positions and our Thordan time. We've also learned to spend our initial pools not trying to do our perfect rotation, but instead doing for science deaths and just focusing on debuffs, reading any debuffs that pop up, any buffs on the boss, seeing what that is, what those could possibly be about.
And to this fight's credit, there's more unique about this Innocence fight than I think there is with Titania. For the big obvious one is that we just skip phase 1. We don't do Vothri fight. We go straight to fighting Oh No, He's Hot Innocence. That's how the extreme version of this fires up. And then all of the line attacks, they hit a second time. I call it like a boomerang effect. But if you actually watch the graphics, like the light spears or swords or whatever they are, they fly out, they kind of pause, and then they come back in. And the return attack isn't telegraphed. Or like technically it is, but if you actually wait until you see the line on the ground, it's already too late because it happens so quickly. So you get the telegraph for the first one, and then it's just, you just stay where you are. You'll be fine. So while that is, I think, a pretty major change from the normal version of this fight, it doesn't really make things all that much harder for me because I'm so good.
Well, it's not impossible to deduce, right? It comes across in that bow formation. If you watch where those swords ended up, you'll see where they come back. And things like the fan. The big, literally shaped like a fan with the curvatures that would go around. Which way are they going to spin? Well, they spin like a fan. So that didn't take us long to deduce either.
I felt real dumb when I was like, how do you tell which way it's going to spin? And then I finally clicked. I'm like, oh, they're curved, you idiot.
But we don't know. You know, when you throw like a ninja star, you throw that edges first so that it, hooks in what it's going at.
I don't even think of a curved ninja star. Most are not curved. They're just...
Oh, if you were to tape 3 axes together, you would throw them points forward. That's what I kind of mean, right? Like, you'd want to just stick... There we go. Perfect analogy. I do appreciate that we skipped baby Vothri phase. It wouldn't have been terribly interesting. It would have been a rather large delay, and we still had the ad phase to go. We still had to fight our Venries and whatnot.
Slightly different. You get 2 Venries at the same time. They have to be tanked apart, and you get 1 Shame that can essentially be killed before it starts moving on its own if your DPS is fast enough, which ours was.
And phase 3 was full of bombs and stuff.
Yeah, that was the cool big difference. And that was something we didn't get even until the very, very end. We cleared it, and then we went and watched the guide, and we're like, oh, they explode based on Vothri's attacks.
That was cool, yeah, that if you line Vothri up, Innocence up, to hit the various areas, you can create more safe zones than just the explosions. But when it came to things like Starbirth, how many times in this game have you experienced a telegraph that then explodes slightly larger, right? Like, that's not going to really trip you up at this phase of the game.
You say that. And
well, you're going to die to it the first time, right?
And yet it tripped me up.
But you're not going to stay down. Yes, tripping is the right word. You're going to be tripped up, but you won't be staying down for an extended period of time going, what was that? What wasn't possible? So the real danger was when we had explosions going off at the same time that we ourselves were dropping explosions. And I think we overanalyzed this a little bit and was thinking we had to like make one side of the map. Maybe I was just overanalyzing, making one side of the map for the explosion. We had to like taxi those over there. Really, there was more than enough room for everybody to kind of move together as long as the explosion person was not a part of it.
Explosion person. I like that. Is that on your business card?
It's an explosion expert.
All of these, I find myself frequently saying that was a fun dance in Final Fantasy XIV. There's just so much of these, of every fight feels like at some point you're gonna dance, unless you're doing math, and then I don't like it. A lot of dancing. It's a fun dance. Vothri was a fun fight, but also easy as pie. If you're looking for a place to get your feet wet on extremes, this is my new suggestion. Start here. Start with Innocence.
Well, and dance is such a great expression, whether it's ballet or Lure the Dance. For the most part, everyone's in unison. Dismiss all individuality at the door. You don't stand somewhere special. You're not special. Just get on top of everybody, unless the mechanic tells you not to. There will be times where the Lord of the Dance comes out in front of everybody and gets to do independent, tank mechanic, or healers have to deal with this particular thing. And that's where you express maybe your skill and your expertise. But otherwise, if you got a party moving in the right way, move with them. It's your best option. It'll serve you well here.
To recap, Titania was an hour 46 minutes to clear. Innocence was 58 minutes to clear. And good old Hades Extreme took us 4 hours and 29 minutes to clear.
Perhaps it was a bit more complicated in some ways.
Maybe we should have been tipped off by the fact that this particular extreme had a unique name, which I didn't even notice until I went back after the fact, because I was just like, game face on, it's Extreme Night, let's go. It didn't even cross my mind that the letters I was looking at as we loaded into this damn thing didn't match. This was called the Dying Gasp, which we called the Dying Grasp in our Shadowbringers video about the end of 5.0, but that's neither here nor there. This extreme is called Hades Elegy. Not even the same name.
Well, none of this is canon.
My suffering is canon.
What's really disturbing about it all is how does the minstrel on the first even know about La Habrea, Igiorm, and Nabrielos? I thought the Amortine ad phase was interesting in the original game, and they had some stuff to say as projected by Emmett's own will of the situation. But I thought going on grand tour of all our Asians was a fabulous idea.
Even though we died a lot learning that ad phase. Oh, we died a lot. I killed you a lot learning that ad phase.
We all died a lot. We all died for many, many different reasons. The first thing we died to was something we've learned to check, which is buffs on the boss. And in this case, Ancient Double. He's going to cast spells twice. So anytime they do in the early phase, any of their throwing knives or like Zerg tendril shootouts, shadow spread, it's going to happen a second time.
Honestly, I picked up on this real quick because it just reminded me of Voth. The attacks happened, and then they're going to happen again in the exact same location. Even though in execution, it's for different reasons.
I'm not calling it tank privilege. You were busy. There's no like, ooh, Garrett's like, ooh, it was so easy for Garrett because he could, survive 2 hits of shadow spread. No, like you were the busiest I've ever seen you. Run around catching all kinds of crazy crap throughout this thing.
I cannot decide. I don't have an answer right now. I don't have an answer as to what extreme that we've done I think is the most difficult. Right now there's a 3-way fight happening between Shinryu, Thordan, and Hades Extreme. And I also realize we have yet to down Shinryu without Echo on. Every other extreme we've done min-eye level, no Echo. But we did on Shinryu throw in the towel and turn Echo on. So, with that in mind, maybe Shinryu just wins. But in terms of my own sweatiness, the 3 of them are like in contention. I don't know. I want to say maybe I felt a little busier during Thordan, but it might have been just I felt claustrophobic because there were so many moments where I felt like I had to sequester him up against the wall while making sure I didn't look at an eye out in space while I heard you all screaming in the distance about intercepting some sort of attack. There was terror in Thordan that I haven't felt since Syndragosa, Wrath of the Lich King era, World of Warcraft.
It was so loud. Thordan was so busy, but it was busy in like I don't know if you'd say structured way. There was a lot going on at once. I would say Tsukiyomi's final phase was the most I ever felt like I was being yelled at by like a high school drama teacher or maybe a drill instructor. Left. Okay, right. No, not that way. Light blade, right? Dark blade. That was a certain level of panic I haven't experienced again until now. And when we got to the final phase of Hades, but more on that in a moment, because each one of these phases, and there are many, many phases of Hades, had its own devilish ideas inside of it.
I'm with you on Tsukiyomi, but that was a shared experience. It didn't feel tank specific. Everything going on here with Hades, like a lot of it I felt very busy as a tank, not just as a player or as a member of the group. As a tank, I felt busy, which was cool.
The main difference I kind of see between like Tsukiyomi or even Thordan and this is just how much raw damage was unavoidable and how much heal checks were at the forefront for what I was doing. I mean, yeah, we took damage, obviously, in our other extremes, but a lot of the time it was based on making a mistake. Like even in the first phase here with Shadow Spread, we had to take that initial hit. Everybody did. And then we had to move to the right area because we couldn't survive the second hit. The later on Doom mechanic that we had to heal off. I've never used Lucid Dreaming so much because I simply just haven't needed this much raw mana throughput to keep everybody alive.
I was feeling bad, but this was the most I think I've ever had to say, hey, I really need a heal. I could use a heal, y'all. Like the beginning of the ad phase, there are multiple, because we did it so many times. There were multiple points at the beginning of that ad phase where both tanks kind of spread off, start popping mitts to absorb the meteors, where I was like, guys, my health. It was a lot. It was sweaty. And someone in the background's like, well, Garrett, boy, sure would have helped if you had one more mitigation ability you could have popped.
I don't think you should tank all that on yourself. The fact that the game was difficult enough prompted you to ask questions, to become curious about what we could do better. And now we find ourselves improving, right? Maybe you didn't even drop it on bar if your bars are full.
My bars are full.
The whole phase 1 eventually became a very easy dance. And we had our own custom names for a lot of these, but I'll do my best to line them up to the official names.
I called it the Hotel Pillow Mint.
Yeah, the Hotel Pillow Mint. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Godiva chocolates. Exactly. Arcane Utterance, I believe it is called. You had to find the side that wasn't going to be fired on. Like, that wasn't that hard. When it was sending down chandeliers everywhere, yeah, it was a little hectic, but I had light speed, which reduces all my cooldowns, so I can instant cast a lot of my heals. So that wasn't that big of a deal.
I feel like that was your panic to get over. I remember the early phases of that, you really being like, oh my God, I hate this.
It was panic-inducing, but not hard to do, if that makes sense. Because, again, the explosions were bigger than the circles that they were being told. And there was times where you would have 3 moving down on you, and you had to, pick and choose. I'm not good at memory games. I've never been good at, like, flip the cards, Mario Party kind of things.
And then I blew you all up during the beginning of the ad phase, probably like 3 or 4 ad phases in a row, because I didn't even realize I had an AoE on top of me. I saw the stack mechanic, and I thought I was being a good boy. I was putting myself right in the middle of that stack mechanic, and I couldn't really see that I also had my own little circle just around me.
Doing it blind, it's trial and error, right? Yeah. Like, obviously, there is a pattern developing that if there is a stack mechanic and somebody has something on their head, probably don't bring it to the stack. But you see a stack mechanic, you want to be a part of it, Chat's yelling about you getting the stack, so you want to be the good player. Everyone's saying get in the stack, so
And then there was the return of your favorite, Ascian Prime.
Yeah, it was good to see Ascian Prime out there again. We dealt with this in Thordan with the I'm invincible and you're not, and being phased for certain damage types. It was good to see them doing their universal manipulation, reducing the health to single digits, making us heal everybody up with Doom.
Or letting them intentionally get low with anti-Doom, or whatever it was called, the opposite of Doom.
Yeah, the damage dealers became afflicted with something called Beyond Death. So they had to run out into the donuts to get themselves hit just a little bit. Just once. One little good hit.
They have to take fatal damage once. If they take fatal damage twice, then they're insta-dead.
We had eyes, of course, on tank, because you were the tank, and I was the healer. But this fight was really particular about the damage dealers.
Speaking of damage dealers, something that involves DPS is where we really got hung up, like the most, which was during I guess it's the third and final phase.
Yeah, we go first phase into the various named ad phases, or, mini bosses phase. And then we have final phase where Hades is taken off. He's now flying, right? His big arms are dominating the space so much that if your camera's zoomed out, you're going to be looking at a lot of wing for a lot of us.
Sure would love to bring my camera out a little further.
Or, well, the goal, I think, was to bring in a little bit. That's what I ended up doing. You had to bring it in. The jail wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. Like, I swore that seeing that in normal, like this big, just huge graphic, all this effort put it into like this jail thing he's doing. Like, I was expecting something really advanced. Maybe like we kind of saw with Alexander.
Yeah.
And like having to go see yourself stopping time. Like, I thought that was going to be a whole thing. Instead, it was just trapping a healer, which, you know, is detrimental to the party. You know, one healer down. But if you were that healer, which I was often, you just kind of sit back. You're just like, I don't have to do anything while you guys break me out. A little breather.
Meanwhile, your tanks are soaking massive damage from meteors, and your heals have been cut in half.
And of course, being at the very end of this entire thing, it was our biggest hang-up. It was our most time-consuming puzzle, was figuring out, again, the martyr. Shadow webs.
We were in the safe spot for the purple. We got blasted by the shared laser.
Yeah. Okay, the purple is, and then he lasered us, and we were fine. And then
he
purple
double
happened
lasered.
again, and then he lasered again.
It looks like the second laser was what killed us, but...
Yeah, would you just wiggle back and forth like a... But I also have a debuff. I have a debuff that looks like 4 diamonds.
Do you see how there's another safe zone all the way to the left? Like, after the first laser, do we wait for the purple to pop and then move over to the other safe zone?
There was also an explosion that went off.
Describe it.
It's purple.
There's a lot of explosions going off.
The shadow spreads that would hit the ground along with the straight line stack mechanic that would give you arcane damage increases. So if you were hit by the tiny bolts that were firing from the wings, which are only targeting DPS, and only if they're at the furthest distance from the boss, could you proceed?
We had no idea that's how that was dulled out. We were really scratching our heads trying to figure out how that ability was assigned to who it was going to hit.
We had to ask in the end. Like there's no getting around it.
Yeah, we were getting on 1 a.m. my time, and we were like, all right, we either ask for a hint or we turn on Echo. And then we got our hit. We got our hint. But again, it's like I feel like if we had everyone on voice and everyone was actually as blind as we were, probably would have sussed it out. Probably would have had a DPS be like, well, I was the furthest and I got marked.
Yeah, and that's the part like we couldn't really deduce is who was getting it, why they were getting it, why our teammates were standing where they were. Did we have to change lane? Like there was a point where I wanted to experiment with changing lanes, and that's a 10, 15 minute investment just to test that part, right?
You gotta get to the final phase before you can even do it.
My big shame came in what is the final phase. Because of course there's like a secret final phase where Hades gets extra big because you do your little active time maneuver. No big deal. Active time maneuver. Super, super easy. Just press buttons. Goes and gets even bigger, causing even more visual issues on the battlefield, and starts doing these jumpy ball Epcot water display attacks across the ground.
They don't connect their trail like Epcot. I know what you're talking about, and that's if you're an Epcot fan, this is not helpful information because
it does work its way across the battlefield like a marching invisible giant, and I happen to have a toe in one that snuck up behind me, so all the way back to the beginning
on both sides. Yeah, this was where I really leaned on our teammates. Where I was like, I feel like they've got a better idea of the travel than I do, and I'm just going to trust them. Don't worry, dude. I also killed us by not standing in one of the 2 final pillars that become a mechanic in the final phase. So we had our own massive hiccups in that in the 11th hour there of the Hades Extreme fight. But this fight was absolutely incredible, and it's such an escalation from the first 2. And to me, I sincerely think Titania is harder than Innocence. So if you do them in order, Innocence, I was like, oh, we got this. Titania was our fastest extreme clear to date. And then Innocence, we have that. Like, I heard Hades was harder, but I'm like, how much harder is Hades really? I was so wrong. I was so very wrong.
If someone timed it out, I didn't blink for the last 2 minutes of this fight. I was completely overwhelmed.
I love that someone sat there and just stared at you staring. Which you know what that means, right? They also didn't blink for 2 minutes to make sure you didn't blink.
Oh, yeah, we got a blinkception there. Moving
They
down the
had to
pipeline.
at least meet you in a staring contest, possibly even beat you. Let's go, everybody. 4%.
Come on.
3,
Come
2,
on. Come
1.
on. Come on. Come on, get out of here.
Fucking go.
Oh, my
yeah.
God.
Woo.
I lived. Ah! It's panic-inducing. You're in this hallway of his wings. He's picking up and doing these big slams. The bouncing ball attacks are going across the field. All the while, you got to be healing. You got to be damaging. You got to be weaving your abilities. It really challenged me. It was perhaps the worst I felt as a player, but the most inspired I've been to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it's our own challenge we set out for ourselves too, right? Like, I really want to do an ultimate at some point, but I'm gonna look up a guide. I'm not going into an ultimate blind. I have no interest in having that experience.
I can say that I enjoyed this blind experience immensely. I love solving the puzzle, and nothing really in these equations makes me want to avoid that in the future. Yeah, there was the DPS thing we didn't understand because we weren't a DPS. We maybe couldn't see the debuff. But for the most part, upon reviewing your own footage, you could suss out most of the things that were happening.
Yeah. Hades is definitely vying for the most difficult extreme we've done so far, and also vying for the best extreme we've done so far. I really like these the transformative extremes really stand out to me. Like Shinryu is up there. I guess it's like the 4. I know I said 3 earlier, but you brought up Tsukiyomi, which was quite difficult. So yeah, Thordan, Shinryu, Hades, and Tsukiyomi, they're all extremely difficult, and they're all noteworthy levels of transformative. Shinryu is particularly transformative, as is Hades. I think they're tied right now for, like, those two are so different from their normal versions.
Hades was an extra challenge because it wasn't as rhythmically laid out as Thordan. Thordan, every 2 minutes, I would have exactly the thing that my every 2-minute ability was for. There was more choices in there, which made it more interesting to play. And I'm curious to see how they're going to evolve that in the future. Overall, like, just the sheer amount of healing I had to execute and put out challenged me. My World of Warcraft experience was, really, I just didn't want to be put on tank duty. I didn't like preparing a greater heal to drop on you the second you take 75% of your health as damage. Instead, in Final Fantasy, there are times where that happened. There are certainly times where I'm pre-shielding you and your off tank when we're really staring at your health bars. But it's an exact phase where you play that game. And then you go to your other mini games, your other damage or dance abilities.
Well, you think anything has a chance of one-upping Shinryu or Emmett for us?
Looking back in time, I can't think of anything that would be more complex.
I really enjoyed these, particularly Hades. I love that feeling, man. I love there's nothing in MMOs quite like beating your head against a boss and then finally getting the kill. And it doesn't feel the same if you don't suffer. Killing innocents didn't even come close to the euphoria that killing Hades brought upon me.
So you've heard the extremes we've done so far. Are there any we've missed? Is Ravana actually amazing on extreme? Do we need to go back and do that?
Susano?
Susano? Yeah, you want to do? Yeah, you want to do Susano? Yep. Lakshmi? Should Garrett do Lakshmi? Is it better? Is it okay? Can he Lakshmi? Should we make him Lakshmi?
Please don't.
Let us know in the comments below.